What wound matters to the body of a knight-errant? One morning, I awoke with red dots all over my body and face. They seemed like little bug bites of some sort, but I could find no bugs in my bed or around. My mother saw them and changed my bed sheets and gave me some white ointment cream that would relieve the itching. It helped, but it did not mitigate the itches completely, and so I scratched and I would scratch incessantly, in fact until my skin was red and broken. I went to school, and the teacher that I first attended saw me immediately and said, "You cannot be in class," and sent me to the school nurse, whom after I explained were bed bug bites, she informed me, no, I had chicken pox and I needed medical attention immediately. Well, this was one of the many events in my life where my mother either did not recognize my actual health condition or opted to ignore it and hoped it just got better on its own. The latter, I am sure, was due to limited money and insurance, well, lack of insurance, so the financial hit of paying for help was a very strong deterrent. Parent-teacher conferences are a hallmark of education, and is the only direct one-to-one connection a teacher and a parent have ordinarily. My second grade school teacher met with parents without the kids present, so she could speak more openly and candidly. My mother asked that I wait outside while she spoke with the teacher, but I leaned on the outside wall and discovered that while doing so, I could hear the conversation between the teacher and my mother. The teacher said that I was not doing well, that I was not smart. She justified her assessment by saying that I continued to struggle to draw straight lines and circles, and this was a sign of a weak mind. I had no idea what she was saying exactly, but I definitely heard and perceived the idea that I was dumb and not smart, and that they wanted me to go to some special education classes. When I saw my mother, I told her that I had heard things. I told her what I thought I heard. She acknowledged that is what the teacher did say, and said that she disagreed. She told me that the teacher's decision cannot be overridden, however, and that I would have to attend at least one special kid education class. I was insulted. I was not stupid. It did not matter what my mother thought on the matter if the teacher disagreed with her, though. Schools do what schools do. I went to the silly special education class. They made me watch videos of dinosaurs and things that just passed the time stupidly. I guess they made stupid classes for stupid kids. That's sad, in my opinion. They're not helping anyone. By the next school year, they all agreed that I was now fine. I was no longer retarded. Apparently you can get better. I no longer attended the dinosaur video bonus classes. One day at home, someone had dropped a box of wooden toothpicks on the floor, but they had failed to pick up all the toothpicks when they cleaned up the mess. I inadvertently stepped on a toothpick that positioned itself in the carpet perfectly like a lance, with its spear tip awaiting a hapless foot to descend down upon it. I was that hapless foot. It hurt so much. It pierced the big pad beneath my big toe and was nearly through my foot to the other side. One of the toothpicks broke inside against a bone, so its splinters fractured and spread inside my foot. And the main toothpick was wedged so deeply and splintered that my mother decided she should not pull it out, but should take me to the emergency room in local hospital. My wound was that bad that my mother would take me to ER. When we arrived, the staff recognized my toothpick was very deep, and that it needed to be removed immediately by a surgeon. Without insurance, though, the hospital did not want to use any consumables, which included anesthesia. I screamed like an animal without anesthesia from the incredible pain and abuse of those doctors as they cut my flesh and removed the splinter and its fragments. When done, they bandaged and sealed it all away. But I learned that day, money was important, and without it, you are a victim. Not much more than a toddler, I recall a fun time in a nearby park that had a pond. I laughed and ran carefree on the shore of the pond and danced and splashed in its muddy shore waters. It was a time before I became the clean freak. As I waded in the shallow shore, my foot shot with pain. All the joy I had experienced then drained from me as the water turned red. My foot had plunged down on a submerged broken beer bottle in the muddy pond shore waters, and it cut deep. It should have had stitches. However, without meaningful insurance, my mother pulled the shard out herself and wrapped bandages on it. It did heal, but later in life, X-rays revealed a permanent shard of glass had wedged itself into my bone, and my bone grew around it as I grew up. My left foot would forever have a shard of glass embedded inside it. On a ride home one day with my pony Patches to a lake pond that we would swim together in, I crossed a creek. The ride would take me right up to the San Martin-Morgan Hill border, where that creek defined the division or the separation of the two localities. To my shock and horror, though, I saw two sharks and a manta ray in the creek near Patch's hoofs. I galloped out of the creek to safety and returned. Upon examination, I observed they were dead. They must have been captured on the coast, maybe an hour and a half away, and dumped into the creek. Aside from the wasted sea life, it was surreal to see 2.5-foot sand sharks and a small manta ray in a country rural creek. Sharks in San Martin-Morgan Hill, Border Creek. Found crossing with my little pony Patches, headed to a swim area. It was kind of weird. I had spent my childhood as the outcast poor kid. Whether I was the too smart, weird little professor of rural San Martin where intelligence was not valued, or the kid that wore cigarette-burned, oversized, stained, used button-down shirts, or the kid that wore the slightly ripped, bright orange and yellow winter jacket year-round because that is all he had, and so on. I think you get the idea. I was accustomed to being the poor outcast child. I was made fun of all the time. I got used to it. Acceptance was not the default for me in groups of people. I had to work at being noticed or recognized, much less accepted as a valued member of any group. Over life, I had to learn social and leadership skills to engage and inspire people. I learned not to be jealous or envious of things that others had. That is not for me. My mantra that I would use and tell myself my entire life. I developed talking points for myself to find ways to accept my assigned fate. I convinced myself that there was a greater meaning to life and that there was a greater role for me in it. My opportunity to do things just had not yet come.